And yeah, so if I go to the MATLAB environment, it looks something like this, as I mentioned, right? Now let's go to the Simulink. I'm opening Simulink over here. Uh, and so this window will open up. Right now, let's just create a simple model, create a new model over here, right? So this window opens up when you start Simulink uh, in your desktop. So as I mentioned, this is a block diagram based environment. If you go on the tool strip, there is something called as library browser. If you click on this library browser, there are different blocks which are available over here, right? For example, these are commonly used blocks. There are different math operating blocks. So you have gain, you have product blocks, subtract, and so on. Then there are some source blocks, so you can provide different sort of signals, like step signal, sine wave, and different sorts of signals you can use. So these are very commonly used Simulink blocks. I will show you how you can make use of this. For example, if I want to add two signals and see how do those signal look like. So for example, I take this constant block. What I'm doing is I'm just clicking and dragging it into our Simulink canvas. It appears over here. So this is one way how you can take any of the block in the Simulink environment. Second way is I can just double click here and type type the keyword constant, and I can just click, the block can appear over here, right? So now we have two constant blocks. What I want to do is I want to add those two constants and see the output. So I will just add block over here, which looks something like this. What I'm going to do is I want to add this first constant and this second constant, and I want to see the output, right? So for seeing the output, we should have something to visualize. It can be a display, right? So I am just taking a display block here, which looks something like this, right? I connect this. Now, if I want to change any of the constant value, any of the block, if you want to change its working, or any, the inputs going into that, you can just double click it. This sort of window will open up. So here the constant value was by default 1. If I want to change it to maybe say 5, I can do this 5, right? So what we are basically doing is we are adding 1 and 5, and we'll be seeing output over here. So this is very basic stuff to, I mean, just to get introduced to this environment. Let's see how that looks, but just a minute. And so once this your model is ready, what we have to do is just go this onto this top run button. I'm clicking on this run button, and you see the output appears over here as 6, right? If you want to change the block itself, the adding block itself, I don't want to add two constant, but I want to subtract them, for example. So I can just change plus and minus, and I can again run it, and you see 1 minus 5, it's minus 4. So this is very simple mathematical operation. You can do very complex operations here as well. Particularly, you want to do some integration, some differentiation of different signals, and so on. These things are possible. And if you are particularly working in the domain of control systems and so on, you probably need to work with transfer functions and PID controllers and those things. So this is all these blocks are available over here, right? Just to give another example, maybe I can go back to this. Let's delete this. Let's see one sine wave here, like this. Let's observe how our signal looks like, right? So there is a sine wave. What I'm doing is I would be defining how my sine wave looks like. So there is amplitude. I can change this amplitude. I can change its frequency and all other parameters. Click OK. Now here probably I do not want to display the value here because it's continuously time varying. So it's better if I see the its graph over here, right? So instead of display, I can use another block known as scope, which is again very similar to the oscilloscope that you might have used in any of your lab, right? So now if I run it and if I double click it, it opens up and let us see how this looks. So this is the sine wave that we have defined with the parameters, like amplitude is 1 and frequency was also, I think, 1 radian per second, right? So this is just sine wave. If we want to add another maybe sine wave here, uh, let me. So you can actually add any of the signal, not just sine. You can add uh, the step signal or any other sort of signal as well. For now, let's just add sine wave, but with maybe different frequency, and maybe I'll change the its phase to pi by 2, right? And maybe let's add both the signals, right? So you can use add block or you can use sum block as well to do that. Connect those in the scope and let us run it. Let's see how do we see. You see, it's a sum of two sines. In fact, sum of sine and cosine because we changed the phase to 90, no, phase of the sine to 90-degree, right? So this is how the signal looks like. Now you can use these sort of signals in your actual device and try to make the things work in whatever way you want, right? So this is how Simulink generally works, where we take different blocks and start working with them. Now, the point of interest here for us today is once you have installed the hardware support package for Arduino, in this library browser, you will see uh, one set of blocks here like Simulink support package for Arduino hardware. If you expand it, you have different blocks which will appear, which are particularly for Arduino, right? So this block sets will not appear if you have not installed the support package first. You need to install the support package, and that is available for your desktop version for all of you. Once you install that, then you have these blocks which are available to you, right? Then we can take these blocks into Simulink environment, build your model accordingly, and deploy that in hardware and see the result. So I will show you how to do that as well. So this is our problem that we are talking about. So before moving forward, are there any questions particularly related to Simulink itself? Any question?
No, sir, everything is clear now.
Okay, thanks. I see one question was there while installing which all products should we select? I believe it's regarding installation of MATLAB, I think. So basically, initially while installing MATLAB itself, you can start with MATLAB and Simulink. And the way I showed you, I mean, if you have right sort of connectivity and right sort of storage, if you want, you can install all the products simultaneously. But if you do not have that, you can at least basically install MATLAB and Simulink initially, and then whichever product you need, you can go to the add-ons later on, get add-ons button, and if you go to get add-ons, then other toolboxes you can install at any point in time, like satellite communication toolbox, radar toolbox, reinforcement learning, computer vision, and so on. So all these toolbox, even if you do not install, right, so these are, you see here, there are 108 toolboxes which are there from MATLAB. You can install all of them together right at the start, or just install it later on as well, right? But MATLAB and Simulink are basic one that you will essentially definitely need. Fine. So yeah, if there are no questions, I will move forward. So this is the first demo that we talked about. We want to blink LED in certain fashion in some pulses, right? Usually those people who have already worked on Arduino, you must have written these sort of scripts somewhere in some software, right? You must have written these lines of code to make this thing happen, like blinking LED in certain fashion. In this case, we will not be using any line of code, but what we'll be using is Simulink block diagram, Simulink block for Arduino, particularly in this case, uh, digital output block, right? How to do that? Let us see. So yeah, if I go to the library browser again, so there is one block here, like this digital output pin 9 written over here. I am just right clicking, adding block to model. I mean, this is another way to add your model. You can just drag and drop this block, or you can right click, or you can just type over here and the block will appear, right? So this is the block we have with us. What we need is we need to provide some signal to this block. That particular signal will define how our LED should blink. For that, probably I will take the pulse generator block to add the signal. What this pulse generator means is it will create a pulse, a square wave type of pulse uh, with certain amplitude, certain period that we can define on our own, right? I'm just connecting it this one to this particular Arduino digital output block. Now let us define this pulse generator first. If I double click it, let's define it. So there are two options like time-based, sample-based. Let's define, very simple one, the time-based first. Amplitude is okay for now. Maybe let's take period in seconds, like one. For example, 1 second it will turn on, and for another second it will be off. So for that, we need to provide pulse width of say 50%. What this means is for a period of 1 second, 50% of time the LED will be on, other 50% of time LED will be off, right? This is how our model looks like. So ideally, that's it. I mean, this is the only thing that we need to do while working with LED and Arduino, right? The next thing I will show you, and that is sort of one-step procedure while working with uh, Arduino Arduino related project. Let me just show you my screen. In a sense, I'll just this. Yeah. Hopefully, my camera is visible to you, and Arduino board is also visible to you. So this is the Arduino board we are using right now. Forget about all these connections. These are we'll be using these connections in the later stage. But this is how our Arduino looks like. What I have done here is I have connected uh, the Arduino, connected this LED. So this is the LED we have. This is the register we have, and I have connected LED register in certain fashion to the Arduino board using this pins. This is similar to what we see. Let me, not sure my screen is behaving a little weird today. Let me reshare it again. Uh, just a minute. Sorry about that. So I think, let me share. Yeah, I hope it's visible again to you. So basically the connections that we saw here in this particular diagram. So we have LED which is connected to register, and what we are doing here is one end of the register is connected to ground pin, that is GND, that is a ground pin in the Arduino board. The the register is there. Register in series is connected with LED, and the another end of LED is sort of connected to one digital output pin in the Arduino, right? In this case, it is connected to the pin number 9 over here, and this is exactly what we are doing in Simulink here. So we have this pulse generator, and this is the Arduino pin block. If I double click it, you can actually change the pin number, whichever pin number you have connected that LED to, right? Right now, as I showed you the connections, it's actually connected to pin number 9. So I'll just keep it as it is. Once we do this, the next step is you have to go to this top bar over here, and there is another tab called as modeling, right? I go to modeling, go to model settings over here, and I go to hardware implementation because we are dealing with hardware. So here now I have to define which hardware I'm using, right? So there are different hardware which are, as I mentioned, which are supported. Right now we are dealing with Arduino Uno. So I'm selecting that. Another thing is we need to define where our COM ports, where the USB port that we are using of laptop, which port the Arduino is connected to, right? If you're not sure what is that port, you can just go to your device manager and see. So you see here the USB serial device. This is COM4 is the port that is where our Arduino is connected at this point. So we need to define that. It's better if you define it manually. So we need to define which port number it is. It was COM port number 4, right? Once you are done with this, so just selecting hardware port and selecting COM port, then you are done with the settings, right? And you see once you define that, new tab appears over here, hardware, and it takes you to that location. So this is the time for which the simulation for which the model will run. Probably we need to run it for maybe infinite time duration, maybe. So I'm just writing infinite over here, INF, right? And that's it. Then what we have to do is we just have to deploy this model into hardware and actually see the hardware, how does it look like. So I'll again open my camera and we will see how does it look like. Before that, let me also talk about, just a minute. Sorry. Right. So there are two options in Simulink while uh, deploying your algorithm in the mod. So there is one button here known as monitor and tune, and another button known as build, deploy, and start. So the difference between the two is when you click on the monitor and tune button, what happens is your Arduino needs to be connected with Simulink, it needs to be connected with your laptop, and you can actually tune your Simulink model simultaneously while it is already running on the Arduino board. You can change parameters, make it work the way you want to, and it will run like you mentioned, right? The key point over here is you need to have Arduino connected to your laptop if you're using this button, monitor and tune. If you use this one, like build, deploy, and start, what happens is entire model is automatically sent to the Arduino board, and once it is deployed over Arduino board, after that you do not really need you do not really need any uh, you do not need Arduino to be connected to laptop. What you just need is a power supply. You need to provide electric power to Arduino, and it will run on its own based on the algorithm that you have already defined, right? So this is the difference. Right now, I'll be using monitor and tune. So let us see how that works. So if I click on this monitor and tune button, so it says the model is building, it's compiling here, right? And code generation is happening. What does code generation mean is this model is being so this was a block diagram model, right? So it converts it into code, and that code automatically deploys into Arduino board. So we'll be seeing here like you see here it is now connecting to Arduino Uno. This model particularly is being connected to Arduino Uno, and when it happens, let us see, you see in this video, the LED is blinking with the frequency that we have defined. Now I can double click on this block. I can change maybe its pulse width, click OK, and probably it's too high, so it's showing us it's continuously glowing. Maybe I'll make it 20%. I'll rerun it, maybe. So when you rerun it again builds your code, generates a code, deploys that into your Arduino board, and accordingly your model will start working, right? Let us wait till it is connecting.
Pranav, probably the point here to mention is that we do not have to learn the exact programming language for deploying this model, right? So we are doing everything
Right.
graphically just by connecting blocks.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So here we are not writing any lines of code as you see here, right? So this is the advantage. One more advantage is if you change the hardware. So instead of Arduino, if you for some reason decide to use Raspberry Pi in your project, you don't need to switch between scripting languages and trying to learn different languages over there, right? What you just need to do is change this particular block to your Raspberry Pi block, change the hardware to Raspberry Pi, and things will start working. You just need to worry about the hardware connections that you are making here. If you change the hardware, that's it. So that is the advantage that way. So I hope this particular example is clear, which is again a very simple example we talked about, right? So it's a pulse generator. We're sending that signal to digital output pin of the Arduino, and LED is blinking. Any questions on this as of now? Any clarifications needed? We can take question. Anyone?
If there is no one,
You can type.
probably may I ask one question, Pranav?
Yeah, sure.
So why did you specifically select pin 9 here? So which pin to select, and how do I actually identify the pin and change the pin if required?
Right. So if you're not aware like which pin means what, if I double click on this block, there is a button called here view pin map. So if you click on this, a pin map will appear, and it shows different pin, what these different pins are for different hardware. For example, in Arduino Uno, 0 to 13 are digital input pins, 0 to 13 are digital output pins as well, and so on. So there are different functionalities which are there. For example, if you have Wi-Fi receiver or transmitter, which pins to use. So this pin block, the pin map will sort of help you to decide where do we connect these things. So this is particularly for Arduino because we have used Arduino hardware support package. If you install another support package, the pin map for that hardware will also appear over here. So instead of Uno, if you decide to use maybe Micro or any other board, Arduino Nano or MKR board, accordingly you need to see which pins have which functionality, and there you need to connect that. In this case, we selected, sorry, this digital output pin between 0 to 13, we have selected pin number 9. Right. Are there demo models available with guidelines inside this academic software for making practice? There are demo models for, I'm not sure for hardware, but okay, yeah. So yeah, they will share some link and some projects which have a sort of tutorials which you can start working with. But if you are new to Simulink itself and you need some help in building the blocks and building models in Simulink, what you can do is once you open Simulink here, so I'm just opening Simulink. So instead of creating a new model on the left-hand side, if you scroll down, there are these 3 courses are also available: Simulink on-ramp, Stateflow on-ramp, Control Design on-ramp. And in fact, if you install the latest version, I'm using 2020 right now. If you install 2021A, you have another course like Simscape on-ramp. And so these are self-paced courses which you can go through if you're totally new to Simulink itself. If you're familiar with Simulink and just want to get started with hardware, we will share few demos with you. I can, yeah, so there is a link here in the chat. I will also share this with Professor after the session. Right. So this was one example we saw, the very basic one, and generally people who start using Arduino, this is the first demo, first project that they usually do, blinking LED in some certain fashion. Let's look at another example. So this is something you must all have been come across, like in the cars that we use nowadays. It has, if you are taking sort of reverse, if you're moving the car in the reverse direction, we know there is sensors which are fitted inside the car, which will give you alarm while if there is any other object behind your car, right? It will start blinking or it will start making some noise and so on, right? So there should be something which detect that. So this can be any proximity sensors. It can be ultrasonic, infrared, or any such sensor. So let us see how that works and can we create that sort of model using Arduino and MATLAB and Simulink, right? So what we will be requiring for that is we will need one sensor to detect the distance from the object. In this case, we are using ultrasonic sensor HCSR04. So this is a standard ultrasonic sensor which will come with any Arduino kit that you purchase. I mean, if you purchase Arduino engineering kit or that sort of basic kit, usually has this ultrasonic sensors along with that, right? So we will use this sensor now, and how to connect it. It has 4 pins. VCC and ground means you're supplying voltage to this particular sensor. Ground is just a ground pin. So those are connected here in the Arduino, 5 volt and ground, right? And then there are 2 another pins, trigger and echo. We all know how ultrasonic things work, right? It sends some signal through one of the transmitter. It will go and hit any of the object. It will be reflected back and it will be sensed by another receiver on the same chip, right? So trigger is for triggering that particular signal. Echo is it's measuring the echo, the reflected wave coming to it, and we are connecting this trigger and echo to this 2 and 3 digital pins in the Arduino board. So this is how the connection is. I can also show that again in the real hardware that we have. So if you see, this is the ultrasonic sensor that I have. These are the 4 wires, and the same things are similarly, I mean, just like we saw here, these are 5 volt and ground, and these are pin number 2 and 3 where I have connected trigger and echo pin, right? So this is the ultrasonic sensor we have connected. Now let us go again back to our Simulink model and try to build a model for that, right? I'm working the same model so that we do not need to make any changes in the hardware settings, right? So here, if I go to library browser, I can go to, again, the Simulink support package for Arduino hardware. So there I can select sensors from here or just double click sensors. So these sensor blocks are by default available that come along with Simulink support package for Arduino. So there is one block for ultrasonic sensor. I'm using that block, taking it into the Simulink canvas here, right? And what it will show us is it will show us the displacement or the distance between the object and that particular sensor. So we need to display that somewhere, right? So I'm using this display block over here. I'm connecting this block to this display block. I'll have to define how where this ultrasonic sensor is connected in Arduino. This particular sensor has 2 pins, as I mentioned, trigger and echo. So we need to select that. The trigger pin in this case I have connected in the Arduino board at pin number 3. Echo pin is connected to pin number 2. Sample time, let's keep as it is, and I'm clicking OK, right? Now again, if I go to the modeling tab, and now if you see, we do not have to make any changes in the hardware because we have already done. We are working the same model, so everything is set right now. I'll go to hardware tab and I will just click on the monitor and tune button. Let's shift this model here so that we can see, right? And I will run this model and let us see whether we see any displacement over there. Right, so I'm running this monitor and tune. So it's building its code, it's deploying it into the hardware, and what I will do is I'll use my this mobile phone as a object, and as I move closer to it, let's see whether we see any distance change in the distance over here, right? So now it's connecting to Arduino Uno. Right, and once it is connected, you see this is I'm keeping my mobile as using as object over here. As I go closer to it, its distance is reducing. Though we do not mean what exactly this 0.07 mean, what is the unit of that, but you can calibrate that according to using your any of the maybe steel ruler or something. You can calibrate that, scale that particular value, and make use of that. So as I'm changing the object from the ultrasonic sensor, you see the displacement is changing, right? So we are able to connect these ultrasonic sensor to our actual model in the Simulink, right? Once we do that, our next alarm alarm for that, right? I mean, once a distance is less than something, there should be alarm. So in this case, we'll use the same LED that we used earlier. So if the distance is less than a critical value, the LED will start blinking. That is what we want, right? So let us use a sort of comparator here. So maybe I'll use this relational operator. I will use another constant block here against which we will compare the distance. So what I'm doing is I'm sensing whatever output I'm getting from this sensor, ultrasonic sensor. I'm comparing it with this constant. So if I define this constant as say 0.05, what I'm doing is if this is this particular operator is checking if this value is less than 0.05 or it is greater than 0.05. If it is less than 0.05, it will it will be short, it will either give you 0 or 1, right? And here again I will need the Arduino block for LED one, right? So we will use again, either you can use digital output or I can use PWM. In this case, if I select a PWM, for example, it appears over here. So if this value is less than 0.05, then my LED should blink up. This is how our algorithm looks like, right? So just note that this relational operator is a Boolean operator, so it will just give you output as 0 and 1. So we need to have some scaling factor here. So I'm using this gain block over here, right? And this gain value, I'm setting it up as say 200. What that means is if this value is less than 0.05, we will get signal whose value is 1 here. I'm multiplying this 1 with 200, and this 200 PWM signal is supplied to our Arduino board, right? If this value is greater than 0.05, then we will have 0 over here and no signal will be supplied to this PWM pin, right? So if you're aware what PWM is, if you're already working with Arduino board, it's sort of a duty cycle is defined between 0 to 256. 200 means it's you have 200 PWM duty cycle that is defined over here, right? So this is how we have created our model now, and let us again just deploy and see what do we get. I'll again open my camera, but before that let's deploy it here. So you see it's building, compiling, it will connect. Okay, one thing I think I have missed doing, let us see what is that. Let it run. Can anyone say what did I miss here doing? I'll stop for now. I'm using this PWM signal, PWM block, right? I have not defined the pin number for the LED connection. By default, it is 5, but
It should be 9, right, sir?
yeah, right, exactly. So that's the mistake. It would have not run correctly if we had kept it as it is, right? So I kept it 9 now, and again I monitor and tune the model, and let us see how does it look. Right, let it run. So in the left corner, you'll see now it will connect with Arduino board in some time. Yeah, it's building and now it's connecting to Arduino board. We have made that distance to be 0.05. Let us see how that goes. So the display you see here, I hope it's not too small for you to read, but it's 0.17 at this point. I'm taking my mobile phone closer to it. Distance is reducing 0.17 from 0.17 it has come to 0.104. It's going down 0.07, 0.06, 0.05, and if I go even closer, the LED has blown up now because the distance is now less than 0.05, right? taking it away. If it is 0.07, LED is not glowing up, right? So this is a simple algorithm that we created using Simulink, and that can be deployed easily in the hardware that you have, right? Again, note here, we did not write any lines of code. What we needed to do was just connect your hardware rightly and use simple blocks and then deploy this model onto the Arduino. That's it, right? And then you can change. So there are multiple. Make it even more complicated if you want. If you want to blink it with certain frequency based on how much distance it is away. For example, if it is so instead of 0.05, if less than 0.05, there are multiple options available, right? If it is 0.04, you may blink LED with smaller frequency. If it is less than 0.03, the frequency you can increase. If it is even less than 0.02, you can start blinking LED with very high frequency and so on. And this is exactly what you see in the modern cars as you take a reverse, if you apply a reverse gear and take a sort of reverse motion of the car. As you see any of the object, the alarm will start giving you some noise, and its frequency will keep on increasing as you move closer to the object, right? So these things are possible. You can even actually add, so in this particular model, if you want to make it even more attractive, there are dashboards which are available over here. You can take any of the, for example, you can take knob, which is here. I am adding this knob into this canvas here, and I can connect this knob to maybe this constant value, and I can control this constant comparing value using this particular knob. So all these things are possible. So I double click it. It will ask me to which block I need to connect it. I'm clicking on this constant, click on this connect and click OK. Accordingly, if you change any of this value, I mean, if you change the knob over here, its value will change like this. So, right, and then you can control it in whichever way you want. So these are sort of simple starting points where you can start working with any of the sensors and building models. Any questions on this till now?
No, sir.
Yeah, thank you. There is one question which was asked. I think it's so if you have any question, you can actually post that in the chat and post it for everyone so that everyone else can also see that. I have one question here, like, are there only few sensors? So no, there could be multiple sensors. Okay, I'll just go back here. So in this library browser, in the Simulink support package for Arduino hardware, there are only these sensors which are there. But if you have any other sensor with you, you can actually install the support package for that sensor using this hardware support package. Of course, you need to check whether it is supported by MATLAB and Simulink, but most of the commonly used sensors are supported by Simulink, and you can just search here whichever sensor you have, and it will show you the hardware support package for that. You can install that, and then that particular block will appear in your Simulink library browser, right? I hope this is clear. And okay, how did you know that the gain should be only 200? It's not actually only 200. You can set it to any value. It's related to a PWM signal. So if you're using this PWM block, it has a duty cycle going from 0 to 255. What does that mean is 255 duty cycle means it is continuously glowing. The LED is continuously glowing. Duty cycle 0 means it is continuously off. If you have anything in between, the LED will glow with that particular scaled frequency. I mean, just to put it in very simple language, it will put it in the scaled frequency version over there. The voltage, the intensity of the LED will depend on this value. So anything between 0 to 255 will work, but if you give it very low, the intensity of the LED glowing will be very, very low. So I just gave 200, which is not too high, which is not too low. Yeah. Anything else? Otherwise, we can move forward. Will high values burn it? Values, I mean, the gain value greater than 255, yeah, it's probably not advisable to use it. Yeah. Right. The next thing is probably we can use another demo. You can see another demo here for reading temperature and humidity. Dev, would you like to take it over from here?
Yeah, sure, Pranav. Just let me
Yeah,
share
I
my
guess.
screen.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, meanwhile, if you have any questions, keep posting them in the chat window. I will be observing them and try to answer it. Yeah.
Okay. So thanks, Pranav. That was very interesting, right? What Pranav showed in the last demo was that it's not only uh, we reading values from the environment. So we are not just sensing the environment, we are also acting upon the data that we are sensing. So in the last case, we were sensing the environment using, if you saw this particular ultrasonic sensor, but we were also reacting in terms of changing the LED and blinking it depending upon certain conditions. So in the next example, what we are going to look at is something slightly different. So here we are going to look at, we had Pranav in this case had a sensor with him. So what would typically happen if the sensor is not with you, or if you are working and if you have a project running in a remote location, how to get that data and work and have a similar sort of workflow for that. So let me first start off with an example of that sort of a scenario, and then we will try to see how we can do that sort of a project. So if you look into the next image that I have here, can anybody in the chat post any sort of word that comes to your mind when you see an image like this? What is happening here? I can just give you a hint that what I read here is I can see some temperature data. I see certain data written with the units of microgram per meter cube, and then I see a percentage. So I see a response weather. Yeah, partially it's correct. So we are kind of having the weather data, but if you see here, the location is not of a place, right? I can see some buildings also here. So weather is close, but it is not the entire sort of, it doesn't cover all of what is happening here. Any other keyword that you can come up with? Yeah, so that's data related to weather and pollution level. So this comes even closer. Room temperature, I believe the data that they have here is not from inside the room. Okay. So some very interesting sort of answers, and you are actually coming very close to what is happening here. So this is from a particular university's campus. So this is specifically from IIIT Hyderabad. And what they have made here is that they have come up with a dashboard for the Smart City Research Center. So what is happening is that at campus, at different locations, they have sensors. And this sensors is continuously streaming data to a particular location, which in this particular case is the IoT platform that we have. So they are using the IoT platform from MathWorks to collect all that data. And in real time, they can look at the data and get some insights with respect to how pollution is being affected, or due to the location of certain buildings, how the local temperature varies. So multiple other things that they can get it. So if you want to look at this particular dashboard, just you can go to this particular site, and it will open up this particular dashboard. It's as of now open, and we can see the data change in real time. So very interesting sort of interface, right? So this is a project, and how can we build this sort of project might be the next question that might come up, right? So how do we build this sort of project? So the first step specifically, if you look, there has to be some sensor that is able to pick, able to capture the local information. That would be the first step. The second step would be to take that data we aggregate that data at a single location, right? So that could be somewhere in the cloud. And then third could be how we can draw certain insights from the data that we see. So let's look at the example in terms of a demo. Okay. So the demo that I have, how will I start? So I will start off with a very simple sort of sensor. So the common sensor that we are using here, a very simple sensor we are using here, is a DHT sensor. So DHT sensor is specifically, if you look, in case of hardware, it's a sensor that can give you temperature and humidity values. So and what I have to do is that in case of the Simulink model, as you saw Pranav did, I have to find the DHT sensor block specifically for Arduino, because we are reading that sensor data using Arduino in this particular case. So let me first take you to the model that I have. So the first step is that I will connect my hardware properly. So if you look here, the hardware that I have, DHT sensor has 3 pins. 2 of them are specifically for connected for the power. So if you look, it takes in a voltage of around 5 volt, and one of the pins is grounded. The third pin is the pin which is connected to one of the channels on my Arduino. And with that, I will be able to read in the data that is being captured by the sensor. So I have the same sort of configuration here. So this is, let me just start it. So as of now, this is the connections I have made. You can see this is my DHT sensor here. And then you see there are 3 pins. The yellow ones specifically are coming to this particular Arduino board that I have. I have an Arduino MKR 1000 board. This particular Arduino board has Wi-Fi capabilities, so that eventually in the end I can send data to the cloud. And the black wire, if you see, the black wire is actually coming here and connecting to the pin number 9. So here I can show you the connections also. So couple of wires, it is connected, one of them to connected to VCC and ground to get power, and the third is connected to pin number 9. So it seems all of us actually like the number 9 here, and that's why specifically we are going for that particular pin. So once hardware is connected, I have to have a similar sort of model running on my Simulink. So I will just open up Simulink for you, and I have just made the model also ready. So if you look, it's a very simple sort of model. I have the DHT sensor block. If you want this particular sensor block, you can actually go, as Pranav showed, to the hardware location. And there, if you search, that particular sensor block will be available for you. If I double click this, I also need to have a similar pin number here, the pin number 9, because it's connected to pin number 9 on my Arduino. This is a sensor type of 11. So I will just do OK, and I have a couple of display blocks, one connected to this port called humidity, and one connected to this board called temperature, to this pin called temperature. Okay, so this is all that is there. Also, there is another parameter for which I can get value is the heat index. Heat index is nothing but the multiplication of humidity and temperature. So if I don't want to see its value, I can put in a terminator here so that I don't need to display the values. So I have terminated it. So all said and done, let us just start running this and try to see how it is being able to capture the local temperature and humidity data. So this is the data that I'm collecting at my location. In the case of IIIT Hyderabad, they were actually having sensors like this spread across the whole campus. So like Pranav showed, I will incidentally don't want to deploy it and disconnect. I will just want to monitor and tune because I'm going to make further changes to my model. So I will select this particular option and go for monitor and tune. So it has now configured everything correctly. So the steps that Pranav have showed, you have to follow those similar steps to run this model on your hardware, and then only that particular hardware tab will come up at the very top. So although I skipped those steps, Pranav has actually captured those steps. So you have to take similar sort of steps to go for that. So as of now, if you see, I am getting the local humidity value. So I'm located in Bangalore as of now, and you can read that indoor my temperature is around 30 and the humidity value is around 23. Now let's do a simple sort of experiment. What would happen, let's say, if I had, for some reason, heavy equipment running and the temperature, let's say from the exhaust of the equipment coming. So I can simulate that sort of a thing just by using I'm using a hair dryer to do that. So I have a hair dryer. I'll be running it onto my DHT11 sensor, and let's see what happens to the readings here. Sorry for the noise. Okay. So I think you can directly see that what is happening here is that as the hair dryer was sending a mass flow rate of air, and that air had a higher temperature and lower humidity, the local humidity values near my sensor was changing, and I can see that effect onto my temperature as well as the humidity. So the humidity level dropped, and that at the same time the temperature, if we look, it actually jumped up, right? So this is how I'm able to capture the local sensor data at my particular location, temperature and humidity. So if I let it rest, what it will happen is that slowly it will start going back to the previous condition. Okay, so I can stop this one as of now. So this actually gives us an idea about how to capture sensor data. And specifically in this particular case, although we see some changes with respect to this temperature, we are not taking any action directly. We have just shut up that blower, and that is all we have done. So as of now, if I want similar such sensors, let's say what they did was across the campus and collect data at a central location, then I need to use a technology known as IoT. So I have to have internet connectivity with which I can send this sort of sensor data to a local platform, to a cloud platform. So that is what I'm going to do as a next step. So how will I do that? So if I stop this simulation, I will go to the same place, the same library that I had. So in simulation, if you go, there's this library browser. So in the library browser specifically, I will be looking at the Arduino, the Simulink support package for Arduino. So once you have downloaded the support package, you will have this sort of a library here. And as I want to send data over internet, I need to specifically look to this sub library called Wi-Fi, because I'm going to connect my Arduino board over Wi-Fi. So if I go inside Wi-Fi, there are specifically certain blocks known as Wi-Fi ThingSpeak read and Wi-Fi ThingSpeak write. So these are the blocks that are actually going to help me take this data to the cloud platform that we have. So ThingSpeak, as the name suggests, this is the platform that we have for doing IoT projects. So I'm just taking a particular block. So now, once that block comes into my canvas, I see that it has the image of a cloud, so that makes it very clear that I'm going to send data to the cloud. But if I double click it, it needs certain information before this data can be sent to the cloud. So what are the information that it needs? It certainly needs a channel ID and it needs a right API key. So where I'm going to get this particular data? So I'm going to get this particular data by going to the ThingSpeak platform that we have. So let's just talk a bit about what we are going to do here as a next step. So this is done. So what we're going to do here, the term things is going to refer to all the different sort of sensors that I have from which I'm collecting data. So as of now, if you look around most of the devices that we have or equipment that we have, chances are that they are in some way or other connected to the over internet. And from there, we can collect a lot of data. And then with the data, we want to have the data at a location and use that data to capture certain insights. And often insights are not enough. We should be able to take certain action also. So like in the last case we saw, if the temperature runs high, I have to take certain action, which might be some sort of cooling or some alarm if the temperature goes beyond a certain level. So that is the action part of it. So how are we going to do that? So for that, we are going to use the platform known as ThingSpeak. Okay. So what is ThingSpeak in this particular case? So for devices, it's sort of a web address. For us, it is very much like a website. So I can go to the very top and just type thingspeak.com. So it is going to open up a web page like this. If you have your MathWorks ID, you can directly log on to ThingSpeak. So you can see that I have already my account, MathWorks account. With that, I can directly log onto this particular platform known as ThingSpeak. So Pranav has actually pasted the link in the chat. If you are able at this time, please do open up this particular page. Try to see if you can log on. If you have any challenges also, do let us know. So whenever you come to this particular channel, the first thing you notice that there are a number of channels that are there. So if you have come for the first time, chances are that you might not have a channel. So you can actually come here and create a new channel. So when you create a new channel, it will ask for a name. You can add a description. And then in the fields that we see, we can decide upon how many data types I'm sending, and accordingly, I can change the number of fields. So in my case, I have temperature and humidity. So probably a couple of fields are going to work for me. Right? So once I have done this change, what I will do is that I will go to the very end here and do save channel. So once you save channel, you will have a channel where you can log the data that you have mentioned in this particular fields. So let me go to my channels and show one of the channels I have just made for logging the data that we just mentioned for temperature. So this is the channel I have made called conditions. And if you see the channel settings, I have two fields, temperature and humidity. Also, once I have created this channel, what I can do is that I will have a channel ID at the very top. So in Simulink, we saw that it was asking me for a channel ID. I will get the channel ID values here. I can copy the channel ID. I will open up Simulink once again, and here I'm going to paste that particular channel ID. So by default, it has a number. Don't go by the default number. One has to change the channel ID according to the channel which one has created. The other thing we need is that we need an API key. So API key is almost like a password. So whoever has the password can actually be able to send data to my channel. So I will get the API keys under this tab known as API keys under my channel. Here I can see I have read and write API key. So what is the difference? Using read API key, I can read data from my channel. If I give this read API key to my colleagues or my friends, they can actually read from my channel. And if I have write API key, I can write data to this channel. So I will copy write API key because I'm writing data to ThingSpeak. So once I have put in these two parameters, all I have to do is that I have to do apply, but I can also change how fast that data update happens. And I can also change how many variables I'm sending. So as of now, I have two variables. So I will make it 2 and maybe change the data update interval to, let's say, 50. Once I do apply and OK, I can go back to my model here. And here I can see that I have this particular block that is asking me for the two variables. So my first variable could be temperature here. So I will connect it to the temperature signal here. The other one here is the humidity one. So I will connect variable 2 to humidity. And now if I run this model, what it will do is that it will start showing me the data here. But at the same time, it will also send data to the ThingSpeak website. But this is not all. There is one step that is missing here. The step that is missing is that in case of hardware, previously, whatever example Pranav was showing, you didn't need to have internet connectivity for those examples. Here, my hardware needs to be connected over Wi-Fi. So be careful. Not all Arduino boards has Wi-Fi capabilities. Some of them have, like the one MKR 1000 I'm using have, and also the MKR Wi-Fi 1010. They have Wi-Fi capabilities. So your board has to have Wi-Fi capabilities. There are other ways around it. I will just tell what is the other way around it. Also, in case of target hardware resources, I have to go to the Wi-Fi properties here. And here I have to give my Wi-Fi ID and password. So this is my Wi-Fi ID. This is my password. So this is the change that we have to make here in order to connect this particular hardware over Wi-Fi. So once these steps are done, all I have to do here is to go to the hardware tab once more. And then I can again click monitor and tune. And then I can just run this particular model. So again, it is going to generate code here with respect to the specific hardware that I'm using. But this time I'm going to be able to not just see the data here, but also log that data onto the ThingSpeak platform. So meanwhile, if there are any questions, please do mention either by unmuting yourself or in the chat, please. So I can see the code generation has occurred and it is ready to run the model. And it has almost started doing that as of now. I can see it has actually any questions or okay, probably if you're not speaking, probably keep yourself muted. That will actually definitely help. Okay, thank you. So now I can see that the model is actually running onto my hardware. I can capture the temperature and I can see the temperature and humidity values here. But what I will do instead is that I will go to the ThingSpeak channel that I have, and there I will try to see what sort of data is coming. So you can see just less than a minute ago, I have had some data points. So data is coming in here. I have two tables, one for humidity. Humidity is this one, and one for temperature. And I can see the data points that are coming in right here, right? So this is 7th April. I can see the date also, so that I'm sure that this is the data that's been captured very recently. And from the last entry, I get a sense of what is the data that is coming in. So similar to last case, what we can also do is that we can just try to run the blower and try to see whether the temperature goes up or not. Any other observations that you have? Anything else that you have observed? So compared to Simulink, one thing that one can observe is that the data logging here, you cannot do at any rate that you want. The minimum that you have, the minimum frequency is around 15 seconds. So we cannot go less than 15 seconds. So here we can see the temperature, the humidity has dropped because I just ran the blower for a period of time. And the temperature also for a short period actually went up till about 54. Okay. So that is how I can monitor this sort of data here. I can also build some sort of widgets. So I can add widgets here. I can have numeric sort of display. So just making things a little more visually attractive, I would say. We can also embed maps. So we can have maps to denote the local place where which this data has been captured. So I can see the temperature data here. I can have similar sort of fields for the humidity. So we can create this sort of widgets here. The other things that we can do here is that we can actually change how this particular data is being shared. So if I'm working on a specific project that I have and I don't want to share data, probably the best idea would be to keep it private. I can also share this channel view with others. So if I make it with everyone, this will become public channel. And then the last option is sharing view with only a few users. So in that case, I will just enter their emails and then they will be specifically able to look at the data that I have. Lastly, there is a data import export tab. So if I have data from, let's say, an Excel file, which I want to use, just take it to ThingSpeak, or whatever data I'm capturing, if I want to export it, I can use this particular tab to do that part. Right? So now going back, what sort of projects are possible if one uses ThingSpeak? So just to give you an idea, let's look at some of the projects that are possible. Okay. So specifically, if you look in case of academia, what we have seen is that mostly engineers and scientists are typically collecting data from their projects, which could be like we saw, we used a particular sensor to capture a certain data. So like that, you can actually collect this data and do different sort of data analysis. In industry, specifically, if you look, many of the products that are coming out actually have internet connectivity, so they use the data to improve the device's performance. Also, we will hear a lot of interesting terms when it comes to industrial IoT, like digital twins, like having a digital twin of a particular device so that we can monitor that device performance in real time. There is predictive maintenance so that we can predict when a particular equipment is going to fail based on sensor information. Fleet management, companies like Ola and Uber actually collect this sort of data to optimize how their fleet is being operated. Optimization of assets. So multiple of those things can be done. Industry actually uses IoT for multiple of these areas. Also, one interesting area that is actually receiving a lot of attention recently is agriculture. So if you look at agriculture, typically this is a particular sector that can benefit a lot when it comes to technology. Agricultural areas typically are often in remote locations, and if you have sensors there, there is really challenge if you don't have this sort of workflow to actually collect, analyze, and act on that data, right? So what I'm going to show as the next step is something a bit interesting. Let's say I have a particular sensor at a particular location. Like if you look in this particular image, chances are that certain locations, the soil might have less soil moisture and might need watering on a certain basis. So how I can do that sort of a project? So the first thing I can do is that I can have some sort of sensor at that location. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a public channel to look at that sensor data. And then I'm going to analyze that sensor data and then act upon that sensor data. So if there is the soil moisture at a certain location is less, chances are that I might need to water that particular place. So I will have a sort of alert that comes in that the soil moisture at that particular location is very low. And there we will try to see how we can actually come up with an alert so that we are able to take action. So to do this project, what are the things that we need? So like the last example that we see, we will need a sensor that is connected and able to capture data. We will have an data aggregator platform, which we saw is ThingSpeak in our case, to collect that data. Lastly, we need some sort of computational method to actually analyze that particular data and then come up with certain insights. So in our case, we will have MATLAB to do that. And lastly, this sort of aggregator platform should also integrate with business systems so that I can take certain actions at which could have some benefit at my end, right? So MathWorks has capabilities for all these steps, so you don't need to go to any other platform to do this whole sort of project. So everything is done using just a single, like only with MathWorks product, you can do all the 3 steps. So that is the benefit that we have here. So what are the products specifically we need? We just saw that we need hardware connectivity with Simulink. The second thing that we saw was the ThingSpeak platform to capture the data. Now, the third step is how we can use the power of MATLAB to gather insights from the data is something that we are going to see now. So one of the biggest benefits of the ThingSpeak platform is that MATLAB, either you can directly run inside ThingSpeak, or you can run MATLAB on your desktop and you can interact with the data that is collected on the ThingSpeak platform. So both these options are possible. So the arrows that you see here in this diagram, they are actually going both ways, right? So MathWorks has gives you the capability for all the 3 steps. So this is what we already saw. I will just skip by. This is just a review on what ThingSpeak does. We saw how we were able to get data into ThingSpeak. So this is the 4th step that we are going to see, how to use MATLAB in ThingSpeak. So you can run MATLAB analysis inside ThingSpeak by going into this tab known as apps. So the apps button you see, it is at the very top. If you click the apps button, you can actually create MATLAB analysis. And the way this particular code works is exactly the syntax is the same as that we use for normally using in MATLAB. So first step first, what we have to do, we have to sign in. And then I have given these steps here. So what we are going to do, as of now, I don't have a moisture sensor at my end. So there is a public channel that is there where I will be able to get that data for moisture, soil moisture. So Bloom SMP is one of the public channels that are there in ThingSpeak. So one of the, let's say, one of the users has created this channel. So probably I will also share this link in the chat. If you want to do the steps with me, it's totally fine because you can actually run this example directly from the browser. So meanwhile, any questions you have or any comments before I go ahead and do this particular example? So I see a question on, can I have the output in my phone? So definitely we can have, there are blocks for Android devices also. So using them, actually we can have output also on our mobiles. So that is possible. Possibly, I will just share a few steps how you can have run ThingSpeak projects on your mobile. So I've just pasted the link now. Probably in the chat, you will be able to see that link. Okay. So it is not directly opening it up here. Let me just open up that particular channel. So this is the channel that I'm using. You can see that they are logging the temperature data on one of the axes, in one of the charts, and the moisture data in the other chart. So they are having the sensors at their end and they are logging this particular data. And for our exercise, this particular data is helpful for us to do the exercise. We don't need our own sensor to do this as of now. So if you can at your end, do try to open up that particular channel. And what I can do is that I can directly open and run a MATLAB analysis here, right? So what has to be done? If you just click here, it will open up a window. So this is the window that I have here. So there are certain templates that are already there to help me get started. I don't have to write any code from scratch, just to help me save some time. So I will try to use this option here, read channel to trigger email. So if I just go there and create, it is actually going to open up a page for me where there I can see certain code already there. So if you look at this particular code, it has already done a few steps already for me. The only change that I need to do is with respect to this particular step known as alert API key. So this is a different key compared to the read and write API key, the alert API key. So to get the alert API key, what I will do is that I will go to my profile here. I will go to my profile. And there you can see there are some API keys listed here. So I will use the alerts API key here. Just copy this one. If you don't have, like I don't have MQTT API key, I can just refresh it and it will generate a key for me. So you just need this particular key. You can go back. So actually I have already created this one here. So I can see the channel ID here. The alert API key will come here to this particular option here, alert API key. And I don't need to change the rest of the syntax that is there. It's all fine. The code is already there. If you are familiar with MATLAB, you know that this is all MATLAB code. Only there are certain specific commands here, web write and all. These are commands to help me send that email at my end. So once this alert API key has been filled, I can run this section of the analysis. I can save and do save and run. So if there is an error, I will get an output here. If there is no error, what I can do is that I can go there to my email. And there I will be able to see alerts like this. So I can see that there is an alert plant soil information. So no water needed. So the reason this came was because I have specified that if the soil moisture goes below 10%, that particular area will need watering. But in this case, the plant that percentage was higher than 10%, so no water was needed, right? So if you look here, it is actually sending me emails from ThingSpeak. So all these emails are actually going to come to your particular email ID with which you have created an account in MathWorks. So it's not just email sort of alerts. We can also go to the apps. If you look, there are multiple sort of other alerts also possible. Like I can also tweet this sort of messages here. So there is an option called ThingTweet. So here I can connect my Twitter account, and whenever certain conditions are met, there will be a tweet on my account saying that that particular condition has been met. So these apps are very useful to actually do these projects very fast. So I don't have to go there into the coding section and do codes, write codes. I can use this sort of apps to do things very fast. I can set certain controls, say time control. So in the last part, if you saw, I ran that particular script at a certain instant to get results. I can also automate it. I can go to time control and run the script at every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, that sort of a thing. Also, what I can do if I have a website, I can actually send messages there using Thing HTTP. And nowadays, there is something even more interesting known as TalkBack. So I can also I can also communicate to my hardware, to my and then take certain actions at the end of the hardware. So TalkBack is that particular feature that helps me do that. So what I will suggest is that if this is very new to you, please try to see if you can do this particular exercise. You don't need anything else apart from your MathWorks email ID. So you need your MathWorks profile to run this exercise. So please, if you can run this exercise at your end, this will give you a lot of confidence of doing IoT related projects. Any questions? Any comments at this time? I can take a brief pause here. If you have any comments, any suggestions, do let me know. Probably one question I can ask you, like in the comments, like, were you familiar with ThingSpeak before this session? Could you just let me know a yes or no? Were you familiar about ThingSpeak before this particular session? Okay. Okay, thanks. That was a very helpful sort of comment. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. That actually definitely helps us here. So what we can do is that we can share this particular presentation with you, and probably you can try to look at this sort of exercise. And there are also some examples directly on the ThingSpeak website. So let's say if you're interested about a particular aspect, you can actually go to the support tab here, and there you are going to find some sort of examples that are already there. So I see a very good question on, can this be used in automotive design applications? So typically in case of automotives also, they actually try to log certain data. So what can be done is that you can actually try to log similar sort of data at your end, and then try to see if you can go through that data and come up with some sort of insight. So let me give you an example what you can do. Let's say if you have a car that you have built at your end, a prototype, what you can do is that you can run the car on the road and you can probably capture the vibration data. So you can have acceleration, sensor that can capture the vibration data. And then you can take that vibration data onto the ThingSpeak platform, and then you can try to run certain insights with respect to, whether the vibration that you are having that can be optimized or not, whether it could be, you can have better values or not, or how your car's performance is changing depending upon which locations you are driving through. So there are a lot of different applications that are possible. So just to see some of the examples that we have listed here, there is a proximity sensor that has been built. There is a Google Assistant to turn light on and off. Moisture sensor we saw. There are some interesting projects in the area of agriculture, like collecting data over Things Network, reading temperature data from different channels. So this can give you some idea of what sort of projects can be done. And it might be not just for Arduino. If you have a mobile, you can actually capture your mobile sensor data and do projects with it. You can actually use Raspberry Pi. So it works with different hardwares also. So you can see there are lots of examples here. These are examples specifically with respect to the analytics and insight side. This is a very interesting sort of project with respect to battery discharge time. So we know that in case of automotives, the batteries, if it is an electric vehicle, the battery will charge and discharge. And we can look at the data to kind of predict when I would need the next sort of, when the battery has to be recharged for the next cycle. So we can track that also. So probably this page can actually give you a good idea on what sort of projects are possible. And if you have any challenges or anything that you'd like from our side, we can actually connect with you and pass you the necessary resources from our end. So I saw a very relevant question, how to download MATLAB again. I will just come back to it in a minute before I will just complete this section and come back to it. Also, like if you have MATLAB mobile, you can use the sensors. All you need to do is very similar to the Arduino one, download the Simulink support package for Android. It will give you the steps that you need to take to run these sort of projects on your Android devices or iOS devices. Just need to change the mobile settings as developer, and then you can actually deploy and develop apps for your mobile. So you can use all sort of sensors that are present in your mobiles directly, and you can take the data also to the ThingSpeak platform to analyze. So I will not go through this demo as of now, but if you are interested, we can actually connect with you and try to show you the steps. Lastly, one of the biggest benefits of ThingSpeak is that many of the toolboxes that you see nowadays, which is very relevant, like for AI, we have statistics and machine learning, there is signal processing, controls, system identification toolbox, if I have certain devices for which behavior is not known, deep learning, DSP. So all these toolboxes, not only it is available in MATLAB, if you have the license, you can actually run these toolboxes also onto the ThingSpeak platform. So this ThingSpeak, the ThingSpeak platform actually hosts all these toolboxes also. So you can do very interesting sort of projects. If you have data, you can do very interesting sort of projects in the domain of AI, in the domain of, let's say, curve fitting, controls. There is mapping toolbox also in the area of signal processing, image processing also. If you have video data, image data, you can do image processing, text analytics, as well as predictive maintenance to predict faults of different equipments. Also, we have some additional resource here. So we'll just share this PPT with you. Please do go through it. And if you have any comments or suggestions, we will be happy to get back to you. So as of now, it would be great if you could share the feedback form that Pranav has shared. That helps us get an idea on what are the things that was useful and where are the areas when we need to improve. So please do give us the feedback. That will help us a lot. Okay, so I will take some of the questions as I go along. So how to download MATLAB again? So the best way, so I will tell the typical way I download MATLAB. So I will just go to the MathWorks website. Okay, mathworks.com. And here I will just go to this particular tab, MathWorks account. So you must have created your account for MathWorks, right? Because your institute already has a campus-wide license. You can easily create an account using your email ID. Once you've created your account, at the very top, you will see this option, Get MATLAB. This will actually download the installer for you. So once you have the installer, so actually it is going to download the installer at my end. Once you have the installer, one can run the installer, and then it will show you the particular steps to get MATLAB from there. So this is the button at the very top that can get you download for the installer, right? Let me just open up the installer also. So I believe it has not yet started. Let me just try to open it from Chrome. So I have lots of windows here. I will just open up Chrome once and try to do it from there. I have actually downloaded the installer. Probably that's why it's not downloading once more. So once you have the installer, you can actually open up that installer. So it will unzip all the MATLAB. It will unzip all the files that you see here. And then it will provide me a particular dialog box where I can select the products that I need to download. So we don't need to worry about which products to select right away. So let the installer open. I will just show you that step. So once you have installed, you can actually open up MATLAB here and then install the rest of the products from the add-on tab here, Get Add-ons. Anything you miss, you can get from the Get Add-ons tab. So here I can see the add-ons that you see at the very top. So let's say I haven't downloaded the control system toolbox. I will just go and search it there. And then later on, I can actually come and download that product also. So I can see, let's say I have installed the control system toolbox. Maybe I don't have the UAV toolbox. I can go here and just install it from the add-on explorer. So this is the installer. So installer will actually have the steps that can help, that will take you through the installation process. So you just need your email ID and password to do that. You don't need a specific license number. You just have to say yes to the license agreement, go for next. It will directly select for me. I have a number of licenses here. You don't need your specific license number. Let me just use one of them. So you just need to authorize the particular computer. You need to specify where it is going to get installed. And then in the product section, what it automatically selects certain products. So there I can come and deselect and I can use the exact products that I need. Okay, so these are the steps that you need here to actually install MATLAB at your end. So does this address the question, or do you have any other question with respect to installation? Okay, thank you. So as of now, there is a session running on this machine. To get the installer running, I have to close everything and run. So I will not do that as of now. So this is the step that was there. Also, I hope you are aware that you can run MATLAB and Simulink also from the browser. So in case if you have any challenges installing at your end, you can directly go here and just type MATLAB online. So MATLAB online, you can actually run online instance of both MATLAB and Simulink. But for hardware, this yet doesn't have, I don't think you can actually run hardware from the online version of MATLAB or Simulink. So that is one thing we have to be careful about. So if you look here, it has most of the tabs. You can actually open Simulink here, but you cannot, if you see, there is no option here to work with hardware. So for working with hardware, installation is required. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, then probably we can end this session here. Okay, I see one more suggestion on, can I suggest basic system requirements needed for MATLAB and Simulink? So from what I see is that if you install MATLAB, the base MATLAB takes around, I think, 7 GB, and if you have Simulink, it goes close to about 10 GBs. And with respect to the memory, I think you are slightly on the lower side, 4 GB of RAM. So probably 8 GB of RAM would be more helpful. And okay, I also see a comment that has come in privately. So there's a project where breadth has to be controlled, and it must trigger a value it must trigger the motor through IoT. Okay. So probably what we can do is that I can drop in my email, so we can set up a meeting separately to discuss this. So there are ways to do that. I know a couple of ways with which I can trigger a motor through IoT. So we can have the extended discussions probably on a separate day. It will need a bit of time. So maybe I will just drop in our email IDs. Please, could you just reach out to us? So it is definitely possible, but I will have to show you some of the steps that are needed to do that. Also, privately, if you can drop in your email ID, we can also reach out to you. Would that work? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so probably we can, Pranav, do we end the session here? Okay, thank you for the email ID. Pranav, should we end the session here?
Yeah, we can do that. Ma'am, do you want to say about anything?
Thank you, sir. The session was really very helpful for all the students from FY to MTech as far as quick implementation of projects are concerned. And we can see the simplicity behind using the Simulink to just focus on the logic and no need to spend time to learn hardware platform specific programming tools. Though the examples were given were quite simple to understand, but we can extend it to more complex projects and we have to explore it. That's what is takeaway from this session as far as my understanding is concerned. And so thank you, Mr. Pranav and Dr. Dev for providing such a useful insight of Simulink. I would like to thank Director Sir of School of Mechatronics, Dr. Santosh Sonavne, for encouraging me to arrange such sessions for the students, and also all the faculties who have supported me to arrange this session. And thanks students also for attending such useful session. So we can say that the session is over, and in future, if we need support, definitely we will be in touch with you, sir.
Sure, ma'am. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, we will be in touch. So I believe this will be sort of first batch which will be graduating for BTech
Yeah.
Mechatronics, right? So in case if you need any help in doing projects or research projects, feel free to reach out. We'll be there to support you in any way.
Yeah, definitely we would like the MATLAB's support that we can get for the complex deep learning projects.
Right, sure. Yeah,
Because
so whenever
final
you
year and my MTech students, they will be more interested in these type of, because whatever may be the hardware, it might be from mechanical or electronics. Ultimately, we have to go for some machine learning or deep learning type of analysis. And there we would be expecting the support from the MATLAB, how we can, because we are the students are learning the MATLAB in their second year, and that's why they are familiar with this, and so they can easily adapt to these technologies, means whatever new things are coming with the MATLAB. So it will be easy for them to adopt these things. And that was the purpose to arrange this session, that beyond the programming that we have learned, we can use the MATLAB for the IoT also. And that's why I requested you to take up this topic also.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Really, it was really helpful. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sir.
So we're just looking forward to stay in touch. Let's
Yeah,
see.
yes.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, ma'am. You actually summarized it very well. So thanks for that.
Yes. Okay, thank
Have
you,
a
sir.
good day, everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.